Hi, so welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Playbook podcast. And as you can see, it's another solo episode with me, Ashish. And in this episode, we're going to talk about the Netherlands, how they became the women's footballing powerhouse that they are currently, and how we're going to explore their history. We're going to speak about a few players of theirs, and we're also going to touch base on the current 2025 Euros campaign which went by, in which they unfortunately got knocked out in the group stage. Now, I'm going to begin with a little story. So, on the 17th of April 1971, a small group of Dutch women stepped onto a pitch in Hazebroek, France, and made history without knowing it. So, they were about to play in the first women's international football match, which was officially recognized by FIFA. Now, the result of that particular game was quite immaterial, but what those women did was blaze a path for future women's footballers to pursue the sport in general. And yeah, the result of the day was a 4-0 loss to France. But in defeat, they began a journey that would see them evolve from what was a very reluctant participation to eventually becoming European champions in 2017. From having a lot of skeptics within the institution itself, within the KNVB, to becoming cultural innovators by themselves, and from having a lot of forgotten pioneers to having what is currently the current architects of modern women's football. And the story of Netherlands and women's football is not just about winning tournaments or developing world class players. It's about how a small nation transformed its relationship with women's sport, how institutional barriers gave way to cultural celebration, and how the Dutch approach to football, which has always been rooted in creativity, intelligence, as well as collective excellence, found its perfect expression within the women's game. So we're going to start with how women's football took shape within the Netherlands, at least for the first part. And we're going to go through a historical journey through what was initially institutional resistance to now what is now generally celebrated throughout the country. Now, the Netherlands' relationship with women's football began with immediate rejection. In 1896, British businesswoman Nettie Honeyball was invited by Sparta Rotterdam to showcase women's football. Now, the Dutch Football Association or the Royal Dutch Football Association (KNVB) panicked and they immediately banned any such initiative from taking shape. Now, this is a very conservative stance which would define Dutch women's football for nearly a century, with women being condemned to the fringes of the sport for a very long time. Now, the first female team, the Ustanza Vrouwen Football Vereniging, uh, emerged in 1924, but it was quickly sidelined by the Netherlands Football Bond, which was basically the KNVB's precursor, which maintained that the women's role should be restricted to that of wife, mother, or fiancée of football players. Now, this misogyny was deep rooted within the institution, and it wasn't just unique to the Netherlands, but it was something which was, you can say, pretty entrenched within a country that would later become synonymous with footballing innovation. Now, the Dutch women, they refused to be deterred. In 1955, football-crazy women started their own league of 14 clubs, while the KNVB just pretended that nothing was just happening. They just refused to recognize the particular league. And more clubs started joining and played happily in regional competitions. And by the early 1970s, the number of female players within Netherlands had reached 5,500. Now, this was a movement which was wholly rooted in a grassroots-like setup, and it operated entirely outside official structures, and demonstrated the Dutch spirit of innovation that would later characterize total football, which is something which we come to be associated with women's football, especially with how Rinus Michels and Johan Cruyff brought it to the world. It also had its beginnings in the women's game as well. Now, the international context, or rather, UEFA forced the KNVB's hand. 1970, UEFA issued a directive that all member nations should take control of women's football. That meant that the Netherlands could no longer ignore the women's game. However, it wasn't until 1971 that the KNVB finally admitted women's football into its fold, and in 1973 they played their first official international, losing 1-0 to England. Now, this period of what was pretty much reluctant integration was marked by pretty much stop start progress. The team made their first major tournament appearance at the UEFA Women's Euros in 2009, where they surprised everyone by reaching all the way to the semi-finals under coach Vera Pauw. Now, this breakthrough was crucial not just from a result standpoint, but it enabled the KNVB to establish institutional credibility and show that it has been taking steps in the right direction to showcase women's football in the Netherlands itself. Now, Vera Pauw herself embodied this transition period. As a player, she had represented the Netherlands for 15 years and became the first Dutch female professional when she joined Italy's Modena in 1988. Now, her coaching career would later take her to Scotland and eventually to the Republic of Ireland, but her foundational work with the Netherlands cannot be overlooked. Now, we're going to talk about something which was pretty much a trailblazer in how Dutch women's football was transformed. Now, in 2007, the women's game within the Netherlands entered the professional era with the establishment of the Vrouwen Eredivisie. Now, the initial league included AZ Alkmaar, FC Twente, ADO Den Haag, SC Heerenveen, FC Utrecht, and Willem II. This wasn't just about creating a competition, it was about changing the cultural perception of women's football within the Netherlands. Now, the league faced a lot of early challenges, including a brief merger with Belgium from the BeNe League between 2012 and 2015. But this experimentation, it reflected the Dutch football philosophy of constant innovation and adaptation. Dutch people in general are always known for their expression, and this was showcased in this very unique proposition which took place. Now, when the merger ended, the Netherlands returned to its own domestic league with a more targeted focus and ambition. Now, the first breakthrough it came with the appointment of Sarina Wiegman as the national team coach in January 2017, just 6 months before the Euros, which are about to be hosted by Netherlands, by the way, in 2017. Now, the timing made it very tight for her to put an imprint on the team, let's just say, because the team prior to that had lost 4 out of the 5 friendly matches they had played, and the morale was pretty low. But Wegman, who had been the assistant coach and possessed a decade's worth of coaching experience, understood that the Netherlands needed more than tactical tweaks or changes. They needed a complete transformation of mindset. Now, her appointment as head coach represented everything that made Dutch football special. She was a qualified PE teacher who had been the first player to represent the Netherlands 100 times. And this is including unofficial matches, by the way. And Wegman understood both the technical aspects as well as the emotional demands of elite football. And she had coached at every level, from the grassroots club to later to the Dutch Women's Premier League. And she had even broken gender barriers by becoming the first woman to work as an assistant coach with the men's professional team at Sparta Rotterdam. Now, notice how we mentioned Sparta Rotterdam as well. They seem to have like a very common link with Dutch women's football in general. Now, Wegman's approach was distinctly Dutch, very systematic, very innovative, and she focused on harnessing the brilliance of the collective rather than relying on a few individual stars. And she worked on improving the confidence within the players, and she implemented a change in playing style towards a more attacking brand of football. Now, this isn't just your tactical tinkering. It is about expressing the Dutch football identity through the women's game. Now, the women's Euros in 2017, it began with modest expectations. No one expected the Netherlands to do well. They would have thought, I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone within the Netherlands would have been happy with the Netherlands reaching the knockout stages. Because prior to that, the Netherlands had never reached a major final, and few considered them among the tournament favorites. But as the competition progressed and something magical happened, and there's always a magic with a country hosting the Euros, as you can see with Switzerland as well as the current Euros, with England, the Euros which went by, Australia and New Zealand in the 2023 World Cup as well. It's always a magic associated with the hosts of the tournament. And in this particular tournament, that came through as well. So the team played an attractive playing style, and they combined that with the passionate home support and created what could only be described as orange euphoria. Now, the breakthrough moment came in the semi final against England, where the Netherlands ended up winning 3-0. Now, this wasn't just a straightforward result or victory. It was a statement that showed that Dutch women's football had arrived on the international stage. Now, the performance showcased everything that made Dutch football distinctive. It showcased their technical excellence, it showcased their tactical intelligence, and it showcased their ability to rise to the biggest occasions. And then, right after that, we had the final against Denmark on August 6, 2017, and became the defining moment in Dutch sporting history. It was played at FC Twente's De Grolsch Wester in Enschede, and the match attracted a record Dutch attendance for women's football of 28,182 people. And the atmosphere was absolutely electric, with virtually every supporter wearing orange, creating what UEFA described as an all guns blazing spectacle. And the match itself didn't disappoint. It was a real thriller. Now, Denmark took an early lead through Nadia Nadim's penalty, but the Netherlands showed remarkable resilience. Vivianne Miedema equalized within 4 minutes of that, and Lieke Martens put the hosts ahead with a real precise 20-yard trial driver. Now, Denmark's Pernille Harder, who was the talisman of the team, equalized just before halftime, and it set up a second half that would define the trajectory of Dutch women's football. Sherida Spitze restored Netherlands' lead with a brilliant free kick, demonstrating the set piece expertise that would become a real trademark of Dutch football. And Miedema sealed the victory with her second goal in the 89th minute, which sparked wild celebrations, and it would continue long into the night along on the streets of Twente, in Shedder, by the way. Now, what can't be underestimated was the cultural impact of this victory. And the victory parade took place in Utrecht the following day and told the story of how completely the Netherlands had embraced the women's team. Tens of thousands of people lined the streets to greet the team, who paraded in a canal boat through the city center. And this wasn't just about celebrating a football victory, it was about recognizing that there was a distinct shift in the culture. And the tournament's success led to immediate increases in participation all across the country. The Dutch culture proved much more accepting of the concept of women's football than most countries in Europe, and the 2017 triumph signaled, or rather accelerated, this acceptance exponentially. Television viewership broke records year on year, with the final attracting massive audiences and the tournament contributing to a significant spike in women's football participation. Now, we cannot end this video without speaking about the members of this particular golden generation of a team. And we're going to start with Vivianne Miedema, of course, who was the gold machine of the team. She was born in Hoogerveen July on July 15, 1996, and her introduction to football was marked by adversity, as she lost two front teeth in a collision with a goalkeeper at 6 years old, at the tender age of 6 years old. Now, this setback only strengthened her resolve, and it also prompted a joy in her, like playing football is all she ever wanted to do, as she later explained. Now, her rise to Dutch football was pretty meteoric. She became the youngest player to make a senior debut in Holland's domestic first division at age 15 for SC Herenveen. By age 18, she was the league's top scorer with 39 goals. Her move to Bayern Munich in 2014 at age 17 marked the beginning of an international career that would redefine women's football. Now, what makes Miedema extraordinary isn't just her goal scoring tally, although she has a tally of 100 plus goals for the Netherlands, which is unmatched by any other Dutch player, male or female, by the way. It's her footballing intelligence. Now, former Arsenal teammate Jordan Nobbs captured this perfectly. Viv might be quiet for large parts of the game, but the top strikers in the world are the ones that score goals when they need it and create chances for their team. Now, Miedema's performance in Euro 2017 exemplified this quality immensely. She scored twice in the final, including the crucial second goal that equalized Denmark's early lead, and her ability to perform on the biggest stage in the brightest of lights. It combined with her technical excellence made her the perfect embodiment of Dutch footballing principles. And now we're going to talk about Lieke Martens, who was known as the artist. Now, she represented the creative or artistic side of Dutch football. She was born in Bergen, Limburg on December 16, 1992, and she grew up idolizing technical players like Ronaldinho. Now, her journey from local Dutch clubs to becoming a global superstar paralleled the rise of Dutch women's football itself. and her performance at Euro 2017 was nothing short of spectacular. She scored 3 goals in 6 games, including a crucial strike in the final, and was named the player of the tournament. Her pace, skill, and ability to deliver those crucial killer passes epitomized the Dutch approach to football. And the timing of her career peak was perfect. Just weeks before Euro 2017 took place, Barcelona had announced her signing, and by the tournament's end, she was not only a European champion but also the UEFA Women's Player of the Year. And her success demonstrated how Dutch women's football could compete with and surpass the best in Europe. And last but not least, Sherida Spitze, the heart and soul of the team. Miedema was the goal scorer, Martens was the artist. Sherida Spitze was the heartbeat of Dutch women's football. She was born in Sneek, Friesland on May 29, 1990, and her journey embodies the evolution of women's football within the Netherlands. She made her international debut at just 16, and this is while she was still playing for the boys' team at VW Sneek, by the way, and she bridged the gap between the amateur era and the professional football era. And her longevity is extraordinary. By 2025, she had earned 244 caps for the Netherlands, making her Europe's most capped player of all time, surpassing even Cristiano Ronaldo's international tally. And her leadership was crucial during the 2017 European Championship. Her free kick goal in the final demonstrated her technical ability, but her leadership throughout the tournament showed why she became such an integral part of Dutch football culture. As current coach or outgoing coach Andreas Jonker notes, she likes to laugh and to make fun, but on the other hand is also emotional, open, and wears her heart on her sleeve. While we will talk about the players, we have to talk about the architect, which is Sarina Wiegman. And always, while players win matches on the field, let's just say coaches are a little underrated or they're spoken of behind the scenes. And Sarina Wiegman built the foundation for sustainable success. She was born in The Hague on October 26, 1969, and her path to coaching greatness was distinctly Dutch, systematic, educational, and focused on continuous improvement year on year. And her approach to coaching reflected Dutch football philosophy at its best. She emphasized attacking football, collective responsibility, and the importance of expressing individual creativity within team structures. Her success wasn't just tactical, it was on a more cultural perspective as well. She understood that Dutch women's football needed to develop its own identity, separate from but intrinsically connected to the men's game. And her impact extended well beyond the results. Wiegman became the first coach to win back-to-back European championships when she led England, her adopted country, to victory at Euro 2022, 5 years after her Netherlands triumph. And this success validated the Dutch approach to women's football development and demonstrated its exportable nature. Now, the Dutch philosophy has always been about technical excellence and tactical innovation, and it's always reflected in, and that's the same principles that made the men's team famous, by the way. They're always tactically flexible, they're always technically excellent, and they will always be intelligent in their passing. Now, under Andres Jonker, who took over right after Wiegman's departure, the team continued to emphasize these core Dutch values. And his tactical approach showcased Dutch football at its most sophisticated. His team employed a flexible 3-5-2 structure that could transform into various formations depending on the game situation. This adaptability reflected the Dutch football principle of intelligent football, which is the ability to read the game and adjust accordingly. And this emphasis on build-up play from the back remained constant. The Netherlands consistently ranked in the 82nd percentile for final third passes, demonstrating their commitment to controlling game through possession and intelligent passing. And this wasn't possession for its own sake, but possession with purpose, which is a very distinctly Dutch interpretation of football. Now, what sets the Netherlands apart isn't just the tactical innovation. It's always been the integration with the broader cultural context within the country. Now, the approach to women's football reflected broader societal values of equality, creativity, as well as collective responsibility. And the KNVB's vision from 2018 to 2022 for women's football explicitly aimed to integrate women on all fronts and unconditionally part of football. This integration extended beyond the professional level. The Ellen Fokema case in 2020 demonstrated the Netherlands' commitment to breaking down barriers. When Fokema was told she could no longer play with men at age 19, Her club's appeal led to a pilot scheme and eventually the abolition of all grassroots restrictions. And it wasn't just about a singular player, it was about embodying Dutch values of fairness and of opportunity. And the Netherlands pioneered many innovative approaches to player welfare. The establishment of collective bargaining agreements for women's players, led by the VVCS Union, demonstrated the country's commitment to professionalizing women's football properly. As former international Desiree Van Lunteren noted, it would be a good thing if all clubs would have a CBA with a minimum wage and everything else. Now, the cultural significance of the Oranje cannot be understated in understanding Dutch women's football. And it's always been distinctly and intrinsically connected to the way everyone around the world perceives the Netherlands in men's football as well as women's football, by the way. And I think they're one of the few countries where we associate their nickname with a particular color, right? So the orange color, it was derived by the from the House of Orange Nassau, and it represents not just the royal family, but the entire Dutch national identity itself. And when the women's team adopted the symbolism, they weren't just wearing a jersey; they were claiming their place within the entire Dutch sporting culture. Now, the Oranje Leeuwinnen or the Orange Lionesses became more than a team. They became a symbol of Dutch progress as well as values. And the sight of thousands of fans in orange supporting both the men's and the women's team with equal passion demonstrated how successfully women's football had been integrated into the Dutch sporting culture. Now, the Dutch approach to youth development in women's football reflected the same systematic thinking that produced generations of male footballing talent. And the Strong Clubs project, which ran from 2016 to 2020, created a network of 67 grassroots clubs focused on optimal development programs for for girls as well as girls and women. And the results were impressive. There was a 10% growth in senior players, 5.5% increase in junior players, and crucially enough, there was a 50% decrease in number of players leaving clubs. And this systematic approach extended to the professional level. The integration between the eight women's Eredivisie clubs and the KNVB formalized right after the 2017 European Championship success and demonstrated Dutch football's collective approach. As KNVB women's football manager Kirsten van der Ven explained, we want to extend the commercial value and potential that you already see in the Orange Lionesses to the Eredivisie women. Now, right after this, in the 2019 FIFA Women's World Cup, it represented the culmination of Dutch women's football's rapid rise. They reached the final in Lyon against the defending champions, the United States, by the way, and it was an achievement that few would have predicted just about a decade earlier. And this tournament showcased everything that made Dutch women's football distinctive. Sherida Spitze led the tournament in assists with four, demonstrating the team's emphasis on creative and collective play. Vivianne Miedema contributed three goals, while Lieke Martens, who played through injury by the way, provided crucial moments throughout the tournament. The final itself, a 2-0 defeat against the United States, was far from a disappointment. It propelled the Netherlands to being one of the preeminent names or footballing nations within women's football. And they held the world's best team scoreless for over an hour, demonstrating tactical sophistication and mental resilience. Now, they were, you know, defeated by a Megan Rapinoe penalty as well as Rose Lavelle's brilliant solo goal. But the Dutch performance earned a lot of global respect. And Sarina Wiegman's tactical approach in the final demonstrated Dutch football intelligence at its highest level. Her decision to deploy a compact 4-4-2 defensive structure while maintaining the ability to break quickly on the counter-attack nearly frustrated the world's most successful women's team. It was a performance that validated the Dutch approach to women's football and established them as a permanent fixture among the world's elite. Now, from the highs of 2017 and 2019, we come to the present day, which is Euro 2025. And as the Netherlands prepared for this tournament, expectations remained sky high, despite being drawn in what turned out was the tournament's toughest group alongside France, England, as well as Wales. Or, I mean, they were drawn in Group D, or let's say Group B, and that's in brackets. And under Andreas Jonker's guidance, the team had maintained the commitment to playing their attacking football and as well as that collective excellence. And the tournament began promisingly enough with a commanding 3-0 victory over tournament debutants Wales in Lucerne. Now, Vivianne Miedema's brilliant goal, her 100th for the Netherlands, symbolically marked the milestone on football's biggest stage. Victoria Pelova and Esme Brooks added further goals as the Dutch dominated proceedings, suggesting that the magic of 2017 might return. However, the second group match exposed the challenges facing this Dutch generation. England, who were coached by the former coach, by the way, Sarina Wiegman, delivered a very sobering 4-0 defeat in Zurich. Lauren James scored twice, with Georgia Stanway and Ella Toone adding further goals, as the Lionesses demonstrated why they remained the European champions. The Lionesses, in this case, the England ones. The defeat highlighted the gap that had emerged between the Netherlands and the Europe's elite following the departure of several key players from their golden generation. Now, the final group match against France in Basel became a must win encounter, with the Netherlands needing a victory by a clear 3 goal margin to advance. And for 45 minutes, it seemed possible. Victoria Pelova's strike and a Selma Basha own goal gave the Dutch a 2-1 halftime lead, with the 34,000 orange clad supporters creating an atmosphere which is pretty reminiscent of 2017. But the second half exposed the harsh realities which face Dutch women's football today. France's superior depth and physicality told, with Marie Antoinette Katoto and Delphine Cascarino scoring crucial goals in a 6 minute spell that transformed the match. And the final score of 5-2 to France confirmed Netherlands' elimination at the group stage for the first time since 2013. Now, this tournament marked the end of an era in multiple ways. Andreas Jonker announces an departure as head coach, concluding a tenure that had seen the Netherlands reach the World Cup quarterfinals in 2023, but they always struggled to recapture their European Championship winning form. And several veteran players, including the remarkable Sherida Spitze, faced questions about their international futures as the team looked toward a new generation. Yet, even in defeat, the Dutch approach to women's football remained distinctive. The 34,000 supporters who did travel to Basel and the commitment to attacking football, even when facing elimination, and the dignified manner of their exit all reflected the values that had made their rise so compelling. The Netherlands had not just developed world-class players, they had created a culture that celebrated women's football as an expression of Dutch identity. Now, the Euro 2025 campaign did end in disappointment, but the broader story of Netherlands women's football remained one of transformation as well as inspiration. From the institutional resistance of the 1970s to the heights of the 2017 European Championship triumph, from Sarina Wiegman's tactical innovations to Vivianne Miedema's goal-scoring records, the Dutch had demonstrated that women's football could be a vehicle of cultural change and sporting excellence. As the orange-clad supporters made their way home from Switzerland, they carried with them not just the disappointment of early elimination, but the knowledge that they had witnessed something special, a small nation's complete transformation of its relationship with women's sport. And the Netherlands may have exited Euro 2025 at the group stage, but their legacy in women's football as pioneers, innovators, as well as cultural standard bearers remains secure. In the end, the story of Netherlands women's football transcended results and trophies. It was about how sport could reflect society's best values, how institutional barriers can be overcome through persistence and vision, and how a nation's identity could be enriched and redefined through the beautiful game. From that first FIFA recognized match in 1971 to the European Championship triumph in 2017 to the Challenger 2025, the Netherlands had shown that women's football was not just about sport, it was about progress, equality, and the endless possibility of human achievement. And this is Ashish, and I'm signing off. And please like, subscribe, and drop a comment down on this video, and we would truly appreciate it. Bye.